throw a cast net. Small weights around the edge pull the net open in a circle. As it hits the water, the net sinks quickly because of the weights, and the fast descent traps fish underneath before they have time to swim away. A drawstring is then pulled, clinching the bottom closed like a pouch and sealing the fish inside. Finally, the net is retrieved and the fish are collected. They drilled small, precise holes into the teeth using sharp tools, making sure not to hurt the nerves inside. These holes were just deep enough to make a pocket without drilling through the entire tooth. Then they chose gems and carefully shaped them to fit perfectly into these holes. Once in place, they used a natural cement to keep the gems permanently secured in the teeth. They panicked as the comet approached, after a scientist claimed its gas tail could poison Earth's atmosphere. He was sure this would kill all life on the planet, and people believed him. Gas masks sold out. Anti-comet pills became popular, and people even sealed their keyholes to keep out the deadly vapors. Some even thought it would cause the oceans to shift, washing away all of the land. But when the comet actually came, nothing happened. Instead, panic turned to celebration, as people danced in the streets and enjoyed the show. As he tried to dig himself out of the avalanche, the snow kept falling inside his car. But in the back seat, he had 60 bottles of beer that he'd packed for the trip. As he cracked one open, he had an idea. He scooped the snow from above, packing it down below the window before peeing on it to melt it. Over the next 4 days, he kept drinking and peeing his way to freedom.
Oh, thanks.
4 days, he kept drinking and peeing his way to freedom, and was eventually found wandering drunk along the mountain path, according to the legend. As she walked, her foot broke through the rotting wood of an abandoned train trestle. This was once vital route for transporting timber and goods, but the trestle had long been out of commission. Exposed to decades of weathering, its wooden platforms were weak and brittle. As she stepped and fell through, the long drop to the riverbank below left no chance of survival. Her body was later found downstream. When a tiny meteor strikes a spaceship's window, the outermost glass layer could crack, but beneath this, a special inner layer made from tough material slows down the meteor to protect the pressure panes. These panes keep the inside of the spaceship pressurized, which allows astronauts to breathe air without a suit. And if the meteor makes it past these layers, the air inside could rush out instantly, and the cabin could rapidly depressurize, which would be bad. When a tiny meteor strikes a spaceship's window, slip the shoelace between the car door and frame, carefully working it down until it reaches the lock. Now, you'll need to have tied a small loop in the middle, just large enough to fit around a door lock. Position the loop around the lock and gently pull it tight. With steady pressure, lift the shoelace upward, drawing the lock open. The door unlocks and you can now pull it open without a key. Slip the shoelace. If you try to shake a snack loose, the machine's heavy weight, up to 900 pounds, begins to shift. If the tipping point is reached, the machine can start to fall forward. And if you don't react in time to move away, the full weight of the vending machine would crash down on you. This impact of the machine would crush your bones and damage your internal organs. And it's often fatal, killing over 30 people since the 1970s. If you try to shake, when he knocked down the wall in his basement, he found a hidden room. It led to a maze of tunnels stretching hundreds of feet underground. He had accidentally discovered an ancient city built thousands of years ago. At 18 stories deep, it was big enough to house to 20,000 people. Inside, archaeologists found schools, stables, and wine cellars. It also had ventilation shafts, secret doors, and even escape routes. That's because it was used as a refuge from war and invasions. And after remaining unknown for thousands of years, it's now a well-known tourist attraction. When you knock down the wall, your lips are one of the only parts of your skin without any sweat glands. Now, these glands normally create oils that help lock in moisture. But since lips don't have them, they dry out faster than other areas of your body. The skin on your lips is also much thinner than the rest of your skin, making them more sensitive to things like cold air and wind. This causes the moisture to evaporate even faster, leaving your lips dry and cracked. Lips, he charged full speed at his office window while students cheered, but the window frame gave way and he fell all the way to his death. You see, he was trying to demonstrate the strength of the window, as he had done many times before, to impress the students. But this time, he went back for a second try and didn't know that the window had slipped out of its frame. If you're trapped in a sewer, most people would try to call for help, but sewers are typically too deep underground to be heard. Instead, look for a light source, which should lead you to a manhole. If you don't see any light, try to feel the direction the sewage is flowing and move upstream. This will bring you to smaller tunnels where the sewage is fresher and there are less toxic gases. You can then use your clothes to block a small household pipe that leads into the sewer. This will cause someone's drain to overflow, and eventually someone will be called to fix the pipe. If you woke up in a coffin during the cholera outbreak, you might actually have a chance to survive. You see, because there were so many instances of people being buried alive during this time, a tube was connected from the coffin to the surface, allowing airflow. Above ground, a bell was attached to a cord running into the coffin. If you woke up trapped, pulling the cord would ring the bell. This signal alerted cemetery workers that you were still alive. When a rubber band is tied tightly around a keloid, it squeezes the tissue like a noose, cutting off its blood supply, and this causes the keloid to begin to die. But as it deteriorates, the tissue can become infected, leading to severe pain and swelling. And even if the keloid falls off, the process often leaves a larger, more prominent scar. Instead, just have a professional surgically remove it. You could slip a noose over the head of a Komodo dragon, but with a violent thrash, the stick could be ripped away, and its powerful jaws might snap shut on your arm. This is why you should create a small loop from the wire, then attach it to a stick. The noose is carefully positioned over the lizard's head and gently tightened with a quick tug to secure it. When used on smaller reptiles, this technique is effective and relatively safe, but attempting it on a large, aggressive species can have catastrophic consequences. A message was fixed to a pigeon's leg, and it took off, flying urgently to deliver it in 1943 during World War II. Earlier that day, American soldiers were getting ready to bomb a town in Italy overtaken by enemies. But the enemy troops had already retreated because a group of Allied British soldiers had entered the city ahead of schedule. And if the bombs were dropped, they would hit the British troops on their side. The radios weren't working, so they couldn't be warned to stop. So a trained messenger pigeon, known as G.I. Joe, was their only option. He managed to cover 20 miles in just 20 minutes, and made it just in time to stop the bombing. G.I. Joe saved over 100 British soldiers and many civilians, and was given a special medal for his bravery. If a snake bites you and won't let go, don't panic and yank it off. That could just make the snake bite harder. Instead, try running warm water over its head to confuse it. If that doesn't work, take the snake's tail and chew on it. If it still clings on, you can use hand sanitizer and put a little in the snake's mouth. The strong smell should make it release. The snake bites. When the hair is pulled from the scalp, some people feel satisfaction. This habit can intensify with stress, building up tension until the hair is pulled. And though pulling might ease that tension, it can lead to visible patches and feelings of guilt. Some people even turn to chewing their hair before biting it out of their scalp. Therapy can help to stop this damaging habit. When the hair is pulled from they'd be tied with ropes and dragged under the ship's hull. As they were pulled beneath the boat, sharp barnacles and rough wood scraped against their skin, causing deep cuts and bleeding. The salt water worsened the pain, stinging the open wounds. If the sailor wasn't pulled out quick enough, there was a high risk of drowning before reaching the other side. If they did manage to survive, it just meant they were ready for round 2. They'd be tied with ropes and dragged. They harvested the human fat from graves, then mixed it together with poisonous plants to make an ointment. They rubbed this ointment on a broomstick and climbed on naked, hoping to put the end of the stick in the small round notch, rubbing it quickly between your palms and pressing down onto the fireboard. This friction creates blackened wood dust as it heats up, and eventually it will create smoke. When the hole has a glowing ember, carefully tip it into a nest of dry grass and other tinder, and blow on it gently to give it oxygen. Keep doing this until you see flames, then feed with small twigs to grow your fire. The end of the stick he accidentally swallowed the plastic fork while goofing around. Now he assumed it would just pass naturally, and he moved on with his life. But 10 years later, severe stomach pain and vomiting blood sent him to the hospital. Doctors were shocked to find the 9-inch fork lodged in his stomach. The prongs had pressed into the lining, causing a bleeding ulcer. A 45-minute surgery was needed to remove the fork safely. Chunks of meat began to fall out of the sky in a small Kentucky town. They scattered over a farmer's field, covering a large area. The pieces varied in size, some as big as 2 inches, others smaller. Some locals even collected the meat and ate it, but no one actually knows where it came from. Some believe that a flock of vultures had overeaten and puked mid-flight. But to this day, the Kentucky meat shower remains a mystery. He felt everything as the scalpel sliced into his abdomen, but he couldn't move or cry out. That's because he was given drugs to paralyze him, but they forgot to give him the drugs to knock him out. For 16 minutes, he was wide awake in extreme pain until the doctors finally put him under. After the surgery, he couldn't sleep and became paranoid from the trauma, and tragically, he took his own life just 2 weeks later. A crocodile escaped from someone's luggage and onto the back of a plane. This caused panic and made everyone rush from the back of the plane to the front. And this sudden shift in weight caused the plane to lose balance, sending it into a nosedive. It crashed into a house near its landing site, killing 20 of the 21 people on board. But the crocodile survived the crash, only